Hello and welcome to my channel Commerce Specialist, where you'll find videos covering syllabus outcomes of various academic qualifications and professional certifications. Ladies and gentlemen, today's video is about how to pass ACCA exams, how to ace ACCA papers. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to share with you 17 important tips. If you follow them, there is no way that you are failing ACCA exams. These tips are based on my 20 plus years experience of teaching, particularly ACCA students. Up till now, more than 4,000 students have benefited from these tips. It is your turn now. Follow these tips and hopefully you are going to ace ACCA exams. Out of those 4,000 students who have passed so far, whom I mentored or coached up till now, one thing is common in all of them. They all followed these 17 tips religiously. So let's discuss those tips. So guys, tip number 1 and 2 are the tips which I got when I started as a student. I jumped into professional accounting more than 24 years back. One of my mentor gave me this tip, and these two tips are still valid as we speak in 2020. Number 1, know your learning outcomes. Learning outcome means the topics, the areas you will be tested in your ACCA exam. Sometimes it's very surprising for me when I ask some candidates, okay, tell me about this topic. So they just show that as if they don't know that this topic exists. Please understand, ACCA exam is spread over the entire syllabus, so you can't pick and choose chapters which you like to complete and study and prepare. You have to do the whole syllabus. Number 2, map them. Mapping them means if I talk about, let's say, linear programming, LP, linear programming, that is one of the topics in ACCA F5 paper. So from the beginning, you know that linear programming is one of the topics you will be tested upon. What you need to do is, you see in the textbook, it's on page number, let's say, 312. Now, you know what you are going to be tested upon in the exam. You know where to study, and still if you don't do it, then it's only you to be blamed. You know what you're going to test it upon, you know where to study it, so might as well study it and get it done. So the basic mistake what students do is, either they don't know the learning outcomes, most of them. Even if they know the learning outcomes, what purpose does it serve if you don't prepare them well? So know your learning outcome, right in front of that. Okay, this is learning curve, page number this. Linear programming, page number this. Marginal absorption costing, page number this. Investment appraisal, page number this. So you know what to study and where to study from. Tip number 3. Finish your topics and immediately, let's say you have just completed a topic. For example, it's hedging, F9. So if you have completed a chapter or a topic, immediately go and do the revision kit questions. Now, how does it help? See, when you complete a chapter, it's very fresh in your mind. The concepts, the topics, the formulas, the workings. If you do the revision kit questions immediately, number 1, that improves your grip on the topic. Number 2, that makes you more confident. My experience is, when I teach something in the class, when I ask students, you understand, they all say yes. And 95% of the time they are correct. They do understand. But let me tell you, if they don't revise the same topic the same day or the next day, after 2 weeks, 80% of them have forgotten. If I recall, they will be able to recall, but they are not as good as they were the day when the topic was taught. So please keep in mind, the moment you complete a chapter or a topic, immediately do the revision kit questions. That improves your grip on the subject, that also improves your confidence, and which is very important. You know that it's your piece of cake. Okay? Next. The timing. This is a common question which most of the students ask me. how much should I study? How many hours should I study in a day? Ideally, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. Most of my students who are high achievers, they topped in the whole country, sometime in the whole region, in whole GCC, in all Asia. There are students, I don't want to name them, because I have not taken their consent up till now. So, what I'm trying to tell you is, most of the toppers have one thing in common. They have set their brain clock, how it works. See, when you wake up in the morning, try to wake up early in the morning, give 2 hours to that paper. So when you wake up, you are studying. And before going to bed, 2 hours before sleeping, you are studying. So this way it sets your brain clock. You see, by the time you're sleeping, you're dreaming ACCA, you're living ACCA, you're breathing ACCA, you're eating ACCA. This is how you need to, work. Set your brain clock. Early in the morning you should be studying. By the time you're sleeping, before that also you should be studying. Ideally 2 hours. If you do more than that, it's not hazardous. It will help you. Next, single author. I've been telling so many students, sometimes they feel that, I'm discouraging them. No. Follow one publisher, one author. There are different books, different publishers. 4 to 5 publishers are there for ACCA books. I strongly recommend follow one author, one publisher, read it, complete it comprehensively, and there is no way that you are failing. Unless you are super genius, you are too good in time management, you can, maneuver going to 2-3 different books and still you are not distracted. But I will not recommend that. Follow one book. That's one of the key to success. Point number 6. Please do not depend on the formula sheet. In most of the ACCA exam, formula sheet is given. And not all formulas are given, by the way. Few formulas, around 4 to 5 formulas are given. There are so many candidates who depend on the formula sheet, and that's one of the biggest mistakes, in my opinion. Why? For example, you say when the formula sheet will come, I'll look at the formula and I'll plug in the numbers. You will not be able to do it. For example, a formula is like this. Have a look at this. This is the formula. Basically, this is the formula for weighted average cost of capital. We call it WACC. Now, if you have the formula sheet with you, you wouldn't know what this VD means. This VD is value of debt. This V is value of equity. This KE is cost of equity. People will think cost should be from C. So you should know the formula inside out. Do not depend on the formula sheet. Why? Because when you know the formula inside out, when you're reading the question, you can underline the important stuff and then you can plug it into the formula. Another reason why I'm saying learn the formula, understand them, because when you're calculating value of debt and equity, it is always on market prices, not on nominal values. It is always on market values. So do not depend on the formula sheet. Another reason is, what if up till now you've been given 5 formulas in a particular paper, and the day when you're sitting in the exam there are only 4 formulas given? What can you do? You can't do anything. So please learn the formulas. Do not depend on the formula sheet. If you learn the formulas, you'll be able to apply the data which is given. You'll be able to relate it with the formula. Point number 7. When you're talking about the MCQs, they have 4 options, A, B, C, D. While you're practicing, yes, you should know what is the right answer, but you should also know what are the wrong ones and why they are wrong. Like if the A is the correct answer, the answer is 20,000, you should know why B, C and D are, incorrect. That improves your understanding of the topic, of the subject. So please follow this. Just don't be interested in finding the right answer, but also know why the other 3 are wrong. This approach applies when you are practicing. So So if you practice like this, and when you're sitting in the exam, you'll get to know, okay, this would be the right answer, but these three are not the possibilities. Okay? Next. No peer pressure, please. Do not ask your friends, your colleagues, your classmates how much they're studying, when they're studying. Most of the time, they're fooling you. Even if they're studying, they're not telling you. So don't follow what they are doing. They're studying, very good, they are not. You follow your own timetable. As I said, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the night. It's like a famous Coke ad, early 70s they had, Coke in the morning, Coke in the night. That means your day should start with drinking Coke and end with drinking Coke, which I don't endorse. But the idea is you start your day with the ACCA and finish it with studying. So your brain clock is set. Already I've told you in one of the points here. Next time. Fix a time to study. If you keep your study time variable, let's say if it's not possible for you to study 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, that's okay. But fix a time during the day. So for example, between 2 to 4 o'clock, you're studying. So if you have decided that you're going to study 2 to 4 o'clock, between 2 to 4, you're not doing anything else, come what may. Because if you keep the time variable, okay, if it is 2 o'clock, you said, okay, I'll study in the evening. Evening guests will come over. Night, you're feeling sleepy. So the day is lost. Every day which is lost is taking you away from success. Please keep that in mind. So it's always good to fix a time and stick to that. Next, get familiar with mock exams. Now, what are mock exam? ACCA provides access to all the students for mock exam. These are, exam simulations. You will know the screen, the browser, how it looks on the day of the exam, so that it's not a surprise for you. Another way of doing, getting familiar with mock exam and giving mock exam is you will get to know what is your performance level before sitting in the exam. Most of the time, I recommend my students unless they score 80 plus in the mock, don't sit in the exam, because when you're sitting in the exam, you're paying the exam fee. So unless you're getting 80 plus in your mock, do not attempt the final exam. Next, point number 11. Point number 11, maximum attempt approach. Here I'm talking about the structured questions. Okay, especially I'm talking about paper 5, 6, 7 like performance management, taxation, financial reporting, audit, financial management. They have structured questions, case-based questions. Sometimes what happens, students, when they look at the question, they get a little scared because the question, the format of the question, the structure is like, they say, oh, we can't do this. Or sometimes when they look at the question, there is something in the question they don't know anything about, so they leave the entire question for that. Please do not do that. Attempt that question for one part, one paragraph which you don't know about, just leave it. Assume as if it's not there. Do the remaining questions, because if you look at the examiner's report, the marking scheme, there are marks for every single step you do. They are not telling you that you have to have the whole question correct. Let's say there are 6 workings. Even if you have done 5 workings correct, you have done the 6 wrong, or you have not done the 6 at all, doesn't matter. You'll get the marks for the 5 workings. I have seen students failing on 49. A person who fails on 49, it's very painful. That means he was or she was hardly 1 MCQs away, 1 mark away from passing, especially in the computer-based exams. So please, maximum attempt. Point number 12, give equal importance to theory. For God's sake, please give equal importance to theory. Most of the students, they work very well for numbers, numericals, formulas, calculations, but they're not paying attention to theory. Understand, theory is an integral part of your exam. Whether it be ACCA, CA, CIMA, CPA, CIA, theory is an integral part. So what to do in theory? The best thing is you should know the definition of the topic. If it's like break-even, you should know the advantage, disadvantage, limitations of break-even. If it's linear programming, you should know the steps in linear programming. If it is planning and budgeting, you should know the steps in planning and budgeting, how it helps, the disadvantage, the advantage, the process, the sequences, the limitations. These are the things which you need to know for most of the theoretical questions. What I recommend most of the time in my classes is, let's suppose you are talking about a particular topic which has 5 disadvantages and 5 advantages. What you need to do, at least memorize 3 of the advantages and disadvantages. When you have memorized 3 advantages, you can work on additional ones yourself. At least you know the idea, what it is about. But not doing theory at all is a big risk, and most of the papers like F5, F8, F9, I would say 60% is theory in those papers. So you just can't leave them. Point number 13. This is my USP. I tell all the students, don't read the whole question. First read the requirement. What is asked? So the requirement could be prepare profit and loss account, prepare a statement of financial position, make the bank reconciliation, prepare consolidated accounts, calculate NPV, IRR, whatever. So once you read the requirement first, now when you're reading the question, what are the important information you can highlight. So let's suppose you have to calculate IRR, you read the requirement, calculate IRR. So when you're reading the question, you can underline the cost of capital, you can underline the tax rate, you can underline the depreciation, the cash flows. So you need to calculate IRR, and while you're reading the question, you just mark out, take the important information and use them in your calculation. Rather than reading the question and then read the requirement and then go again digging out for the information. That's wastage of time. Please remember ACCA, it's a time-barred exam. You don't have unlimited time to do the paper. Most of the papers are 2 hours. The professional papers are 3 hours, 15 minutes. So you got to put on paper everything you know within the stipulated time. So the best thing is read the requirement, then read the question. Tip number 14, it's psychological actually. Most of the time, especially the good students who think, yes, we know it, we are confident, we are going to do it. Most of the time a question comes and it's a tricky question. Let me tell you, even if you're talking about MCQs, most of the MCQs have the same marks. So if there is one MCQ which is pretty tricky, a lot of information is given, it carries the same 1 or 2 marks as compared to a one-liner. So why you are spending so much time on that MCQ, which will take around 10 or 15 minutes of yours? Might as well you should spend the same 10-15 minutes doing another 10 MCQs, which you can do like this. So no ego. Don't take it personally. You got to be wise. You got to be smarter, rather than looking at, okay, why can't I do this question? I know this topic. I'm going to do this. No, don't do that. If in the first 30 seconds you can't make out that whether you can do it or not, just leave it, go on to the next one. You can always come back in the end if you have time to do that MCQs. So the tip is, don't take it personally. If you can't do an MCQ, just leave it, go on to the next one. Don't spend unnecessary time on a question which I'm sure even if you get half an hour, you will not be able to do it. Because there are some twists and turns, and due to exam pressure, you can't focus on that question and you can't recall what you're supposed to do. Point number 15, the odd ones out. For example, you have options like this. These are the options. And we are talking about correlation. We're talking about value of R. So you already know, if you have studied the topic well, you know that the values of R are between -1 and +1. The values cannot be more than 1 and more than -1. That means these are not the possibility at all. Correlation answer, you cannot get more than +1 or more than -1. So for me, if you give me a correlation question to solve it and these are the options, I'm not going to solve. I look at the option, I'll simply click this. because I know others are not a possibility at all. Likewise for learning curve. Learning curve is, the concept of learning curve only applies when the production doubles. And learning curves normally are not less than 50%. It's above 50% and it's never 100%. It's somewhere between 50 and 80 to be more precise, most of the times in the questions. You cannot have 100% learning curve. So one needs to know what are the possible answers to a particular questions. That is only possible when you've done the topic correct. So if you've done the topic correct, on the day of the exam, be a little diligent, be a little intelligent, look at things which you should not be spending time on. Point number 16, how to check your answers. Know your shortcuts. So I'm just giving you some examples. One way to calculate profit under marginal costing is you prepare the whole statement of profit and loss. The other way is, instead of starting from sales and finishing at profit, you just minus from total contribution your fixed cost. Very quick. You'll get to know what is the profit. So in your MCQs, they're not asking you to show your workings. So if you can do contribution per unit multiplied by total number of units less fixed cost, you'll get your answer like this. Who's asking you to prepare the complete statement of profit and loss? Number one. Number two, when in F5 you're talking about linear programming, there is a graphical presentation of linear programming. But that takes a lot of time, making the graph, finding the feasible reason, and then the best combination. Instead, you can do it simultaneously. If you use simultaneous equation, you will get the same combination of x and y, whereas it takes twice the time doing it graphically. So most of the time in my exams, whether it be any of the professional exams, when, for example, I was doing linear programming question, even they are asking graphical presentation and solution through graphical presentation, I used to do it simultaneously, very quickly, get to know, and then, plot the same in the graph and show, okay, point D and E or 5,000 units of X and 9,000 units of Y would be the ideal combination to optimize profit. Point number 17 and the last point. Follow the sequence of papers, please. Do not jump. If it is F1, F2, F3, so go in that order. There is a reason for that, okay? Because first 4 papers, actually you can give in any order, but it is recommended that you follow the sequence of papers, okay? And when I say sequence of paper, please keep also in mind that every paper demands time. Every paper demands respect. You can't say audit is easy and financial management is tough. You can't say SBL is easy and SBR is tough. No, every paper has its own importance and you need to invest time to qualify that paper. So now in the end, a quick review of all the important tips. Know your learning outcomes, map them with your textbook. Once you finish your topic, do the revision kit questions, fix a time, ideally 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours before going to bed. Your brain clock is going to work. Then you're talking about just following one single author, one publisher, and that's enough. Do not depend on formula sheets because it's better to learn. Because when you're practicing, there is no time bar, so you can learn the formula. Why depend on the formula sheet? Okay? Next, you also need to know the wrong options. Not just what is right, but why, if A is right, why B, C, D were wrong. That increases your understanding of the topic. Then we're talking about no peer pressures. Don't get carried away with what your friends are doing. Okay? Just don't listen to them. If they're studying or not, you have your own timetable, you have your own career, your future. Just focus on that. Next, fix a time to study. There should not be variable time. Sometimes you're studying in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon, sometimes in the night. No, no, no. Fix a time and come what may, at that time you should be studying. That takes you closer to your goal. Okay? Get familiar with mock exam. Before exams, before actually attempting your paper, you should be doing maybe 2-3 times mock exams. Unless you score 80% in the mocks, do not sit in your final exams. Next, maximum approach. When you're doing a structured questions, case study questions, Do as much as you can, calculate as much as you can, write as much as you can. Just don't look at the question. If it feels like, difficult one, just leave it. No, do as much as you can, because every point, relevant point you put on the paper, you type, input, gives you some marks. Theory questions should be given equal importance. Read the requirement first. When you read the requirement first, you know what you're supposed to do. Next, no ego. No ego here means that do not take difficult questions seriously and then go about cracking them. No. Don't spend so much time. Go on to the easier ones. You can always come back to the difficult ones. Then, odd ones out. I told you, there are certain topics, like I give the example of correlation. The answers are not possible more than 1 or more than -1. Somewhere between -1 and 1 should be the answer. So if in the option there is something like 1.7, 1.8, that's not a possibility. So just don't think about them, narrow down and then try to see which is the right answer. Next one. Check your answers. There are quicker way of checking your answers, confirming it. If it's a bank reconciliation, if it's profit and loss calculation, statement of financial position, learning curves, there's so many. But that is only possible once you have done the topic correctly. Ask your teachers, ask your mentors, can I check my answer? Is there an alternate way to see whether I'm doing it right or wrong? They will definitely tell you. Then, finally, follow the sequence of the paper. If it's 1, 2, 3, do them in the same order. Give equal respect and time to all the papers. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope these 17 points have added some value. If you really follow them religiously, you're going to be among the 4,000 plus students who have qualified ACCA so far under my guidance. So guys, if you have liked this video, please press the bell icon so that you don't miss any similar videos in the future. If you have any queries, questions, comments, leave them in the comment section. Definitely I will respond to that. And please do not forget to share this video with your dear and near ones so that others can also benefit. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for your precious time.